Hospital porter's pride and dignity. Stop the New World Order. Welcome to her Panwo TV. Right, the other day I had to catch a coach. I was in Nottingham and I had to get back to Oxford. I live in Oxford, as you probably know, but Bardo lives in Nottingham and I was visiting her. It's quite a long journey, about 4 hours, and so I needed something to read to stop me getting bored. I had a book with me, which is like a something quite heavy, something to do with the Knights Templar and related subjects, kind of my study book, so to speak. I was a bit mentally tired, so I felt I needed something a little bit more digestible. So I went into a charity shop and I bought this for £2. It's a novel called Shark Mutiny by Patrick Robinson, published by Arrow Books, 2001. It's kind of like a military thriller, and it's very digestible. How shall I put it? It's not exactly Shakespeare. You know, if you're looking for something to expand your mind and enrich your soul and inspire you at a gut level, then this is not the book for you. If, however, you are getting on a plane or a train, or in my case a coach for a few hours, and you want something to keep your brain ticking over, keep the wolves of boredom at bay, then this might suffice if it's to your taste. But it is to mine sometimes if I'm in the right mood. It's basically, as I said, it's a military-based naval thriller, and like many of these kinds of books, it's very much plot-orientated. In other words, the story is a series of actions, and it's not really character-driven. The characters are merely sort of like directors of the action, which so that's basically what it's about, how it works. I started reading it and I felt a bit of a chill come over me. The reason is that, as I said, this book was published in 2001, which means it must have been written before 9/11. But it seems somehow almost prophetic, because 12 years later we're in a situation very similar to what is in this book, and that is that the armed forces of the West are gathering to attack Iran. Now, I've only read this far through the book now. I'm that far. All right, so I haven't finished it yet. I don't know what happens next. If I find something interesting in the book later on, I will let you know. But for the moment, even the bit I've read so far is quite disturbing, quite worrying. What happens is, you see, there's two elements really. Firstly, it's the fact that you get Iran wanting to attack merchant shipping. They're basically carrying out a strategic attack against the oil industry by sinking oil tankers. And what's more, they collaborate with China to do it. So basically, China and Iran, these two axes of evil countries, get together to sink shipping. They plant mines across the Strait of Hormuz, which is a very narrow stretch of sea. It's basically the choke point through which all shipping has to go in and out of the Persian Gulf and the open sea. What happens is several oil tankers get hit by these mines and they blow up and oil goes everywhere. When the Americans realise what's going on, they send the US Navy in to intervene, and that's basically where I've got to in the story. The other chilling element of it is that the author talks quite distinctly in the book. He puts into the story a lot of concern to do with China and about the expansionist nature of China. In this book, China is engaging a new kind of imperial age, because you get a little bit of a history lesson, because China had an imperial age about 500 years ago that was cut short very, very suddenly by the Chinese emperors. They suddenly banned all overseas travel for reasons that no historian's ever been able to agree on. And in this book, of course, they're starting again. 500 years later, they're starting again, and there's a lot of concern through this overseas base that China is building. Now, this again is strangely prophetic, because if you must remember when this book was written, I'll stress that again. It was 2000. It was before 2001, so he may well have written it in the sort of 1999-2000 era. But it very, very strangely echoes the sentiments of Project for the New American Century. It's an organisation that has become infamous, at least within the conspiratorial community, since 9/11. Now, of course, there's no evidence. There's no evidence that Patrick Robinson is a member of PNAC. In fact, he's just a writer. He's just. But it's, and of course, the time it was written too means that the ideas of PNAC weren't very well known. But it's very, very strange how the sentiments within this story echo the sentiments of PNAC, and especially this document, Strategies, Forces and Resources for a New American Century. Now, I'm one of the few people I know who's actually read that document all the way through, and I've written a review of it, and if you look into the description box you'll see my review of that document, and this is the one that contains that heart-stopping phrase, New Pearl Harbor, and things like that. Now, and then it goes on to explain how Saddam needs to be dealt with, how Afghanistan needs to be dealt with, all of which came true, of course, and this longer-term strategy to deal with China, because China at the moment is sort of like the upcoming superpower. America's trying to keep it down, Of course, at a high level, the Illuminati are controlling both, and it's all engineered. But the plan is for a third world war. That is something that many researchers all agree on, This is kind of what's coming out in this book. I don't know what's going to happen in the book. As I say, I will let you know. But I mean, it's pretty obvious, that that there's going to be a kind of like longer-term campaign against China. They have the pretext for a longer-term campaign against China, not just Iran, but China as well. Now, of course, that's of course what PNAC want. Strange thing is, the author, as I said, is actually quite a sort of jingoistic right-winger, very much an Americanophile, an optimist of America's role in the world. Even though, like I said, he's nothing to do with PNAC. He very much echoes and supports the sentiments of PNAC. He's the kind of person who would be on PNAC's side. Now, of course, as I said, there's no evidence. I'm not accusing Patrick Robinson of being part of any kind of potential false flag operation in the Persian Gulf that we might see within the next few months. It's quite likely. But, it could be, that maybe the publishers saw this, what he was writing, and thought, yeah, that's good, or maybe there was a ghostwriter involved, or an editor decided to put bits in, or they decided to get someone else to write some parts of the book. This does happen, in writing novels. Who knows? Or maybe it's just coincidence, and I'm wrong about all this. But I say, the reason I can guess, I know what Patrick Robinson's politics are, and his political kind of views, is because there's a very much a polemic theme to this story. His politics, the politics of the author, does come out very much in the book, and you can see he's very much leaning that way towards the pro-American, pro-military, America leading the world, democracy. These other countries are all nasty people that need bombs dropping on them and things like that. It's that kind of sort of viewpoint. On the other hand, and there's other intriguing little clues actually. Now, if what am I trying to say? He's not someone who's conspiratorially aware, obviously, because these views would be incompatible. If he's a mainstream neoconservative or neoconservative sympathiser, then he wouldn't be conspiratorially aware. However, there are intriguing little clues in the story that show an understanding, almost a subliminal understanding of conspiratorial matters. For instance, there's a character in this story called Cathy O'Brien. It's spelled with a K, Cathy with a K, O'Brien. Now, the author may well have just heard the name Cathy O'Brien and put it into the book subconsciously. He might have heard it out the corner of his ear one day and it went through his subconscious, or he may have deliberately put it in there. Cathy O'Brien, as you know, the real Cathy O'Brien, who spells her name with a C, is a woman who has written several books about how she was a mind-controlled slave of the government, and she was basically a sex slave and a drug runner, and she witnessed horrific crimes. She was horrifically sexually abused, as was her daughter, and she witnessed other of these various kind of offences carried out by very powerful people. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen next, but we'll see. I'll be reading more of this book, and I'll let you know. And you can pick up a copy yourself if you want it. If you find it in a charity shop, you might get one for cheap, like I did. But I'll put a link to the author's website so you can order one if you want, and read it yourself, and let me know what you think. We're entering a time period now, so much like this book now that is almost, we're expecting something to happen, something's going to kick off, and it could be exactly what happens in here, which is an oil tanker gets attacked. Now, of course, the news media will blame Iran, as is the case of this story. It is actually Iran and China who are behind it. But of course, you and I know that we shouldn't automatically accept that cover story as real, and we should look behind the headlines to see if there may be a false flag element to it. There's a video going around actually on YouTube which talks about the USS Enterprise. Now, I'm not a Trekkie. It's nothing to do with Captain Kirk, right? The USS Enterprise is actually a real ship. It's an aircraft carrier. It's actually America's oldest aircraft carrier, and it's on its last commission, and it's due to be broken up as soon as it gets back to its home port. And this could be a convenient sort of thing they can do. They can get this ship sunk, so that's the pretext for attacking Iran. But it's no big deal because it's only a ship that's on its last legs anyway, so the American forces won't be damaged in any way. And this happened with Pearl Harbor because if you remember, I mean, Pearl Harbor is a lie hop, a let it happen on purpose. In other words, there's evidence coming through both from the admiral who was in command of the base and other sources that America stood back and let Japan attack Pearl Harbor. The Japanese very famously sunk the big gun battleships, but I mean by the Second World War those were obsolete weapon platforms anyway. And the decisive weapons in the Pacific War were the aircraft carrier and the submarine. Now the Japanese flew straight over the submarine base and never touched it, and the aircraft carriers conveniently were all out at sea on exercise. So we may be looking at history repeating itself yet again. As I'm saying, read the book, but if this book does come true, all right, if it's the new Lone Gunmen, if you remember, the Lone Gunmen was this TV series which, there's an episode which seemed to predict 9/11 where a plane's about to crash into the World Trade Center. In the TV series, the heroes pull it out of the way, but of course in real life that didn't happen. If this book is the new Lone Gunmen, and what happens in this book does come true, right? It doesn't mean that the people who are in the story are to blame will be to blame in real life. So it's important to remember that. This book, this book may have been somewhere in the publication or writing process. This book may have had these themes deliberately put in it to subliminally program us to accept that. I don't know. We'll soon find out. Time will tell. Just keep our fingers crossed that it doesn't come true and I'm completely wrong. Well, thank you for watching Her Panwo TV. Hospital Porters, Pride and Dignity, stop the New World Order.